people shall be separated from your body, and one people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. When her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. Now the first came forth red all over like a hairy garment, and they named him Esau. And afterwards his brother came forth with his hand holding on to Esau's heel, so that his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 60 years old when he gave birth to them. Jacob and Esau were the sons of Isaac. Isaac was the son of Abraham and Sarah, whom the covenant was established. Now, what I want us to look at on this is that his two sons, Jacob and Esau, Jacob later went on to be renamed Israel. Jacob went on to become known as Israel. Jacob was a plotter and planner. Esau could have cared less. He liked hunting and doing his own thing. At one point, he came in from hunting one day whenever Jacob was cooking some lentil stew, and he says, "Give me some of that stew that you're making." And Jacob says, "I will for your birthright." Birthright meant the oldest one got a double portion, plus it got the father's blessing. And Esau was so concerned about his birthright, he says, "What good's my birthright going to do if I starve to death? Give me a bowl of soup." Sold his birthright for a bowl of soup. When Isaac was about to die, Isaac had called his sons. He called Esau and he says, "I want you to go hunting and bring me some of that stew meat that you hunt and you prepare so well. And fix it for me and bring it to me that I might eat before I bless you and depart." Rebekah hears what's going on. She dresses up Jacob in Esau's clothes, puts a skin over him so he's hairy like his brother. He smells like his brother because of his clothes. And she prepares a goat, fixes it before Esau gets back, brings it into him. Isaac says, "You smell like my son Esau, and you feel like my son Esau, but your voice sounds more like Jacob." And Jacob says, "No, it's me. And he convinces him. And in the process, Isaac blesses Jacob to be the ruler over his brother, and all the possessions and all the power and all the blessings of God of becoming a mighty nation. And then Jacob leaves. Esau comes in, having went out and hunted, having prepared the meal, and brings it in to his father. And he says, "Father, I brought this back." And Isaac says, "Well, then who was that last guy who was just here?" He says, "Was that your brother Jacob?" And he says, "It must have been." And Esau says, "Well, go ahead and bless me." And he says, "I can't because I've already given it to your brother." And he says, "Well, don't you have a blessing for me?" And he says, "No, I gave it to your brother. I don't have anything else really to give you." Think that caused a little family friction? Now then, we've got Ishmael, who is the oldest born of Abram, and yet the covenant was with Isaac. Carry on to the next generation. Jacob was the younger brother of Esau, but Jacob received the promise and the blessing, not Esau. Now, in a sympathetic heart, we'd say, well, that's just not right. That just doesn't seem fair. But look at the nature of Ishmael. It says he lived in defiance of all of his relatives. Last couple of passages look at the nature of Esau, and there's just 2 verses in each one. Genesis chapter 26, verses 34 and 35. And it says, when Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, the daughter of the Hittite, and another gal who was a Hittite. and they brought grief to Isaac and Rebekah. Go over to chapter 28. When it was time for Isaac to find a bride for Jacob, they sent him away because he didn't want him to marry one of the locals. And verse 8 of chapter 28, so Esau saw that the daughters of Canaan displeased his father Isaac, and Esau went to Ishmael and married besides the wives that he had, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of somebody else. In other words, when he found out that it displeased his father, in spite of that, he went and married a couple of other women in spite of what displeased his father. Now then, what I want you to see in this more than anything else is the people that Israel has been fighting since that day up to today are really relatives of theirs. But what took place, in my opinion, is because of jealousy, because first of all, Isaac got it and Ishmael didn't. Jacob got it and Esau didn't. That there began this jealousy over what was going on. Was God justified in doing it? Look at the natures of Ishmael, who lived in defiance. Looked at the nature of Esau, who just didn't care whether he pleased mom and dad or not. And if you didn't care if you pleased mom and dad, you're probably not going to be too concerned whether you pleased God or not. So God was looking at the nature of the people. Now, an argument would be, well, that's because they got cheated. But remember what God told Hagar before Sarah gave birth. He's going to be against everybody, and everybody's going to be against him. Even so much as to say where he's going to live. God knew the nature before they were even born. And he knew that they were going to be fighting and arguing and carrying on from all time on. The people that Israel is fighting today are relatives of theirs. And through Ishmael and the Islamic nation and then the Muslim faith, they have created their own God to imitate the God of Israel. With the idea that if we can wipe out the people of Israel, then our God will be supreme. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Watching a local news the other day, I just happened in on somebody else's TV, and it was on a local station. And they were basically trying to get everybody to feel sorry for the Palestinians because of everything that was going on over there, like they were the victims and Israel was the aggressor. And that, if you look, you see marches all over the world with that same mentality. And as I thought about that, and then did some research, that's exactly how the Hamas wants you to think. If I could have 3 people come up, I want to make a demonstration. Danny, I need 2 others, a couple others. Paisley, come up. You'd be perfect. All right. Danny, I need you to stand right here. Bonnie and Paisley, I need you to be right in front. If Danny was Hamas, and they had done what we know that they have done, and these are just normal citizens, what Israel has done, because of what Hamas has done, they have come out and they says, I'm going to make you pay for what you've done. I'm going to put some serious hurt on you because of what you've done. Now, you guys, I don't have any problems with. So I would encourage you to go and get out of the way before I do anything. Now, common sense would tell you what? If I was going to hurt him, and you might get hurt in the process, would you get out of the way or would you stay right there? You'd probably get out of the way. And that's what Israel is doing. They're saying, I really would like for you guys to get out of the way because I don't want you to be hurt because my battle is with them, not you. Now, Israel is saying, you guys, I'm going to give you time to get out of the way. Danny on the other side is going to say, I need you guys to stay right here. Because if you guys get hurt, then it's going to make him look good and me look bad. And that's what's going on in our country today. But the world, the media especially, is wanting to say, because these guys didn't get out of the way, and I'm doing everything I can to avoid hurting them, but to get to him, there's going to be some casualties, then all of a sudden I'm the one who's at fault. Whenever I have asked you to leave, given you plenty of time to leave, and you either didn't on your own or he won't let you. Does that make sense to you? Thank you, guys. I think we need to have a visual sometimes of what's going on. And if you look at what has taken place since the days of Jacob and all of his family members, if you could have sorted through some of those names that I went through, you'd realize that a lot of those names went on to be nations that did battle with Israel from the time that they came out of Egypt through the wilderness into the promised land. A lot of the battles that they fought were direct descendants of theirs. Now then, if they're going to have such a battle on their hands at all times, and you've got just one family, Jacob's family, now look at the nation of Israel that went to Egypt and became slaves for 400 years, and out of that nation of Egypt came not just a family, but a mighty nation. God was keeping them protected so that he could grow them into a nation, so that he could have a people for himself. And actually, in Egypt, God was protecting them so that they could grow. Now then that they have come out, they've been fighting ever since. Because all these other nations, you know, whenever you look at some of the philosophy that they have, that if I can kill Israelites, then I'm going to be rewarded in heaven. What kind of a God is that? I mean, does that even make sense that there's any kind of a God that would reward you for killing somebody else when it goes against even moral character? And what I want us to see is that, yeah, there's some innocent people getting hurt and killed. There were 1,400 of them that got killed on October 7th. And they were all Israelites. They were just celebrating and having a good time. And now then they have so many hostages, and they're calling and to put more pressure on to cease fire, to take a pause, to do whatever. And everything is to benefit Hamas and the terrorists, but not Israel. And I think we need to see what's going on. And to realize that somewhere along this whole thing, I think God is going to show himself. I don't know exactly how, I don't know exactly when. But the Israelite people have been fighting for existence for thousands of years. You know, Hitler tried to eliminate them. How many other people have tried to eliminate them? You know, now then you've got all these sympathizers supposedly for the Palestinian people, but they're actually sympathizers for the terrorist. The Palestinian people elected the Hamas government to take over their country. Now they're paying the price for it. If anybody needs to stand up to Hamas, it needs to be the Palestinian people and say, this is not what we expected. This is not what we had in mind. Now then, jealousy, I believe, is what the first start of it was. Jealousy went unchecked, became resentment. Resentment became hatred. Hatred leads to death. And it doesn't have to be with this, it can be with anything. If you or I get jealous of somebody else, pretty soon we start resenting them. And after we resent them for so long, if we don't check it and get it taken care of, then all of a sudden we start hating them. And whenever you start hating someone or something, death occurs. It may not be a physical death, but it may be a death of relationship, a relationship with maybe who you hate, but it also is a death of relationship with God. This is the thing that we need to learn from this, to keep jealousy in check. You know, I believe God believes this because what was number 10 commandment? Thou shalt not covet. Because whenever you start wanting what you've got to the point to where I really want it, I'm going to try and take it away from you. Then I'm going to resent you for having it, and then I'm going to hate you for having it. And our form of any relationship is gone. And it hurts you more than it does anybody else. It's kind of like unforgiveness. You can be mad at somebody and not forgive them for years, and they're going about their merry way, and you're just stewing and boiling and brewing and carrying on and just feeling more resentment, more hatred, and more death, and they don't even know what's going on. Let us keep our own feelings in order. Let us keep our own emotions in check so that we don't do the same thing that's going on over in Israel right now in a smaller scale right here where we live. The good news is, when Jesus came, he came for whosoever. He came so that every nation in the world could be blessed. That includes Ishmael's families, Esau's families, all of those, by simply accepting what God has done. No longer is it based on who your daddy is or who your family tree comes from, but in whom you believe and put your faith in. That's why they're coming against Christians too. Because they don't want to compete. They don't want to give up that built-in hatred that they've had for generation after generation after generation. But that also points to why Jesus is so important, because he offers it to whosoever believes. Whosoever. Even them. Even me. Even you. I hope this helps you a little bit on the perspective of what's going on. And I hope we look at it maybe at a clearer understanding. And I hope we measure it against our own things that's going on in our life so that we don't become guilty just to a lesser degree. As we've gathered here for worship this morning, God's speaking to your heart about any decision you need to make. Maybe you've been harboring